Hello YouTube, welcome to another Q&A with me, Jack Peach Guitars. How are you all doing today? Thanks for joining us once again. Sorry I'm a little bit late, had a few technical issues as I was coming into this video. I've actually tried to be a little bit more clever today and use two different devices. I've got my phone further away, which hopefully means you'll be able to see and hear me a bit better than last time. I've also got my iPad so I can read your comments as they come in. Had a little bit of issue with that as I was getting set up, so thank you for bearing with me. I was playing in with this stunning guitar, so it was really no hardship for me anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed what you were hearing from this Music Man guitar. Hopefully you can hear me. I have got a fan on today because it's really warm. That's probably a lot better. Okay, the fan's off. Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry about that, guys. I'm incredibly warm, so in case you couldn't hear what I was saying, had a couple of little technical issues at the start there, as well as a temperature issue. I'm really warm, so the fan might come and go throughout the course of this video. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and just get on with the subject at hand. So if you didn't see last week's video, I basically did a live Q&A. We wanted to try and bring the live videos back in a little bit more of a candid way as well. So it's just me. We've got Luke is downstairs working very hard. So everyone else is busy. I just wanted to come and do some live videos by myself to try and just get back what we had going on throughout the lockdown period. It seemed that a lot of people really enjoyed that stuff. And I thought that it would be a great opportunity to firstly directly answer some of your questions. So everyone that participated last week, I really appreciate it. Had a really great load of feedback from that. Hello Joe. And so I just wanted to do another one, and also I wanted to use this as a way of showing you some cool gear. So the guitar that I'm playing right now is definitely going to fit that bill. I wanted to use this because I've always loved the Albert Lee model from Ernie Ball Music Man guitars. It's one of the most unique body shapes. Let me just tilt the camera down a little bit so we got a better shot. Okay, there we go. So this guitar is actually a slightly different take on the Albert Lee model. This is the BFR guitar for this year, for earlier this year. It came out at NAMM, I believe, and this is obviously with 3 P90 pickups. Some of you may have seen the listing video that I put out yesterday, or it might have been the day before, and it's been on our website, it's been all over our Instagram and stuff like that. Amazing guitar. I really fell in love with it as soon as I played it. I've always had a thing for Music Man necks, and I do actually have a rosewood necked Music Man Axis myself, so this feels kind of like home when I compare it to that guitar. It's not something that you see very often, in fact, from them, and it's something that they do extremely well, this kind of, I can't remember how they term it, but it's basically like gun oil rubbed down neck. It's super smooth, no rough fret edges or anything like that here. The wood just feels incredible on this neck, and being a rosewood neck, it's got slightly different tonal property as well to a standard maple, roasted maple, or even mahogany. So really killer guitar, and the unique thing of having the 3 P90s as well, it's kind of like a Strat, but a little bit different. So obviously Albert's primary guitar has the 3 single coil pickups, or 3 Strat style single coil pickups. This one with the P90s just has a different thing, and it really, I think it's a little bit more versatile. So let me just show you once again. I had some really nice clean tones at the start there, and I'm going to talk through the rest of what I'm using as we go, but I'm going to use a couple of different bits of gear. on the floor, as well as show you a couple of different guitars as well. But first of all, let me just show you some more clean tones with this guy, with this Music Man. It really does the clean thing really nicely. One thing that I will say about this guitar, sorry, I've just got to adjust this one more time. This is going to be the right angle now. There we go, okay. Didn't want to chop my own head off. Yeah, one thing I will say about this is that it still does the Albert Lee kind of tone, and I've got quite a lot of reverb and delay going on here, but it will still do the spanky in between. That really nice fluid spanky thing that Albert is known for, but the beauty of his model is that it's always been a bit more of a chameleon than that. And with the P90 pickups on this guitar, it means that you can get a really warm neck pickup sound. And the bridge pickup isn't going to tear your face off with treble like a Strat style single coil pickup might do. It's actually a little bit more telly-like, I think. So that's really good. I just think it's a real kind of near perfect package, and like I say, it corresponds nicely to a guitar that I have experience with, my own Music Man, and it just really felt like home. So whoever buys this guitar is going to be very, very lucky. You can take it from me that this is one of the best Music Man guitars I think we've ever had in the store. It's certainly one of the most unique. And for that alone, I think it earns a lot of merit, because it's just great to have an instrument that is that is unique. You see so many brands that do kind of stay in one lane, or they like to honour their own heritage, or maybe they'd like to take ideas from other brands and just refine them in their own way. Music Man have always kind of pushed a little bit further than that, and they obviously have certain influences, but they're just a little bit more unique in the sense that they do guitars like this, which really, what else could you compare this to? Especially when you get into the BFR realm and you've got all these different custom wood options and stuff like that. So real killer guitar. Just before I move on to what else I'm going to talk about today, I'll just show you what this sounds like with some drive. I'll also tell you about what the amp is in a minute, because I'm really happy with this sound that I've got today. So let me just show you some drive tones. I've got the King Tone Dualist, the new version 2, which I'll talk about in a bit, on the floor, and this is what this sounds like. That's a good sounding pedal. In case anyone didn't know, the King Tone Dualist, yeah, absolutely immense sounding overdrive pedal. Okay, so that's kind of the main guitar of today's video out the way. I wanted to show off what this Music Man's about. I do have a couple of other guitars I'm going to show you in the realm of cool gear. But before I go any further, let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions, because this is also a live Q&A, so I just want to make sure I'm not going to miss anything as we go. A lot of viewers from America. Hello to, who have we got? Eric Machucha from Wisconsin, hello. Metal Thrashing Matt from Pennsylvania. Marcus Rogers from Virginia. Awesome. Fede Portera from Franklin, Tennessee. Awesome. Viewer from Israel as well. So, wow, we're all the UK guys. We are a UK shop, but this is the beauty of the internet. I get to connect with all you people from further seas, which I really appreciate. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. West Sussex, there we go. We've got a UK viewer, our one UK viewer. Yeah, so thanks once again for joining us, guys. Yeah, keep the questions coming in. I did post an Instagram post as well with some kind of inviting some questions as well. Did get a couple of responses there, so I will chuck some of those in a little later in the video. But if you've got any questions right here, then please chuck it in the comments box and I will do my best to reply to it. Okay, so I've teased a lot about what else is going on in the chain. I'm sure you've probably noticed there's a fair bit of reverb, and that is courtesy of the amplifier today, which isn't always the way. I mean, there's so many good reverb pedals on the market now that you kind of don't have to use an amp with reverb anymore, I think. The days of relying on an amplifier solely for its effect have kind of been and gone, but there is always cause, in my opinion, to plug into an amp with spring reverb on board, particularly if it's a smaller amp, because if it's like a little 1x10 or 1x12 cabinet, the reverb is very much part of that sound because the spring tank is literally in the amp, so the physical effect of it just being reverberated, if you will, the reverb being reverberated is part of the sound. So to that end, I'm plugged into the JS12 from Morgan today, which is Josh Smith, famous blues guitar player, blues guitar hero. It's his signature amp from Morgan, and it's his take on their PR12, which is Morgan's take on a Princeton reverb. And if anyone watched last week, you might remember that I said, when we were talking about amps, that in my opinion, if you plug any guitar into a Princeton reverb, or a deluxe reverb, but more specifically a Princeton because of the small amp factor I just mentioned, you really hear what that guitar sounds like. And obviously that is the job of an amplifier, is just to literally amplify your guitar. But in terms of just getting across the purest, most tonally balanced character, Princeton reverbs are the way. And this JS12 from Morgan is a little bit more refined. It has a bigger speaker. It's got a 12-inch speaker. It's got a really nice reverb, and what they actually do is they give you separate, basically send and return levels for the reverb. So they call it dwell, and then reverb is just the reverb level. But it means that you can get a really splashy tone, a really enveloping tone, without it necessarily drowning out the tone too much. So if I just play a kind of transient so you can hear how much reverb is coming from the amp, it's quite a lot, but it's just such a sweet sound. And I adore spring reverb. I always have it on, but there is just nothing like having it in an amp in quite the same way. And later on I'm going to show you with another guitar. I'm just going to crank the amp. And last week I talked about the real virtues of cranking a small amp and just playing really dynamically. And I think that's the best way. If ever you come into a guitar shop, this would be my personal piece of advice to anyone who comes into a shop and you're looking to try a guitar. Not necessarily if the guitar is geared more towards high gain sounds. Perhaps you want to take a different approach. But my personal kind of method, if ever I'm trying out some gear, and I'd strongly recommend it to you, is get something like a Princeton or whatever the guys in the shop will have. And of course here we've got such a huge choice. This is just one of the demo room amps. I am in the current state that we're in, where we're taking appointments. This is one of the demo rooms. So this is one of the amps that you could play. Just turn it up all the way if you want. And rather than playing with the amp loud and the guitar turned down, if you like, if you want to get it quieter, do it the other way around. So have the hang on, I've completely got the order wrong there. What I meant was, rather than having the guitar loud and the amp super quiet, do it the other way around. You probably understood what I was trying to say there. Just turn the amp up and turn the guitar down, because what that means is, I mean, the amp's pretty loud anyway. I've actually faced it away from me, so that hopefully it's not going to clip the camera mic, but it just means that you can really explore the dynamics that the guitar has. You know, so I'm sure not every guitar shop in the world will accommodate that kind of thing, but I know that the guys here would do if you wanted to take that approach. That's just a little piece of advice anyway. So that's the amp for today, and I've got a couple of pedals. I talked about the Dualist. I kind of don't need to talk about that anymore because I play it all the time. Pretty much in every video that we do here, I'm usually using the Kingtone Dualist. And save me unplugging this one that's on the floor, I'll just show you what it looks like. So that's the pedal. This is actually the one that I use in the demos. This is the old V1, and we've now got the V2 of the pedal, which has top mounted jacks and the ability to run at high headroom 18-volt power. And so it sounds very much the same, but there's a couple of real benefits to using it with a pedal board setup. But the Dualist, I think I saw a question, metal thrashing Matt, all-time favourite drive pedals, that's one of them. Certainly for me, if I, on my own board, if I'm looking for an overdrive pedal, and that's not to say necessarily, like last week I featured the Nobles ODR1, which is very much a natural amp-like sounding kind of gain pedal. If you're looking at that kind of thing, like distortions, that's a different category. But for just overdriving an amp, or overdriving another gain pedal, if you're stacking, the Dualist is kind of the be-all and end-all to me, because you've got two circuits in there. You've got one that's kind of based on a Tube Screamer and one that's kind of based on a Marshall Blues Breaker. And if anyone saw last week that I used this pedal with the Nobles, stacking them together, you can go from a clean sound to a really high gain, tight, percussive, verging on metal sound. I'm not going to do that right now because the amp doesn't facilitate that, but if you're looking for an all-in-one of the highest quality, and now improved with just further revisions by one of the best pedal builders in the world right now, because he's such a great guitar player as well as pedal designer, that really goes hand in hand, then the Dualist is kind of all you would ever need to look for, in my opinion. And he does make several other brilliant pedals too. I'm talking about Kingtone pedals, but the Dualist is the one for me that ticks all the boxes. So that's one of the pedals. The other one is a little bit unusual. So it's from a new company that we've just taken on, Death by Audio Pedals, and they're probably best known for their very crazy fuzzes. And in fact, yesterday Luke and I filmed a video overviewing the new pedals that we've got in, so you're going to see that coming out very shortly. A lot of them are amazing. They really challenge your perceptions on how to use effects in a guitar signal chain. But this one I really liked because it's not quite as out there as some of those other ones. This is the Micro Dream delay, and it's an analog delay, which we all know we don't really need any more analog delays in the world, but it helps when you plug it in with kind of no expectations and it really impresses you. So for example, I'm a big fan of the MXR Carbon copy. I'm sure for a lot of people that is their go-to analog delay. And so, you know, generally when you go to try another one, you kind of always have a benchmark in your head of what you compare something to. But I kind of just plugged this pedal in yesterday fairly unassumingly, and I really like what it does. So if I turn it on, you can hear what I've got it doing so far. It's kind of like a little bit of an echo rec, kind of a fairly quick repeat. I actually like on the graphic of the pedal they give you a rough indication of the time of the delay, and I'll come on to why I think that's interesting in a moment, but I've got it set roughly, I guess, about, what's that, 200, 240 maybe? what struck me was that that's way more musical than a lot of other analog delay pedals are, in my opinion. So whatever they've done with this, whether they based it on something in particular, I don't know, but the Death by Audio Micro Dream, and I'll show you a little later on, I'll show you what it looks like so you're aware, but I was just really impressed with it. And the thing that really struck me that I liked the most is actually when you use it at the extremes, because analog delay pedals don't usually have that much available time on them. You know, you usually see them max out around 500 or 600 milliseconds. This one goes beyond 1 second. And what you notice is, I'm going to turn the reverb down a little bit on the amp so you can hear the delay a bit more clearly. When I turn it up, you might be able to hear that you get that true analog chip noise coming in. Might not be able to hear that on the camera, but so this is with the delay probably around 800 milliseconds. And being analog, when you change the time as well, it moves in that oscillating way. So if I max it out, you can hear it's really noisy. And I love that these lo-fi pedals are kind of really popular at the moment. You see a lot of companies like Chase Bliss, for example. And a lot of these pedal companies are going after those lo-fi loops and lo-fi delays and reverbs. This is one of the best that I've ever tried, personally. And so this is maxed out at, I guess, a second plus. I'm going to turn the mix up. Do some swells. Fun stuff with this pedal, and what I like is it's not too complicated either, and it does a proper true bypass analog thump through the amp when you turn it on and off. I love that. So it's old school and you know, a little bit messy, and you know, not everyone's going to understand why it makes noise like that, and I totally appreciate that. But there's a million other delay pedals that will do nice, clean, pristine. You know, for contrast, here's the HX effects that I use all the time for delay. Which sounds brilliant, and that's very usable. So if you want that clean sound, you can get it, but that's got a lot of character to it. So delay, the Micro Dream delay from Death by Audio, very, very high recommendation if you're looking for an ambient lo-fi delay. That's what I would say. So that's the two pedals for today on the floor. What I'm going to do now is just make sure I haven't missed any more questions, and I'm also going to move on to another guitar. So before I put this down, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Okay, going back to a few more greetings from around the world, which is great. Hello from Holland, New York, brilliant. Germany. Good day from Oxford. Yeah, most UK guys are working. Fair enough. Fair point. Hopefully they'll catch on to this a bit later on. Good Morgan, Jack. Very funny, Luke. That's hilarious, in fact. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the Morgan amp, the Morgan PR12, and this that I'm playing today is the JS12, in case anyone missed. It's the Josh Smith signature version of that amp. Just sounds absolutely beautiful, and later on I'm going to crank it and show you just how great it sounds when you do that. Okay. Okay, Odge UK says, Jack, diehard Marshall classic rock guy here, but lately I've heard a few vintage Fender Tweed amps that give that gnarly Joe Walsh thing, like the Bandmaster, 59 Harvard, Vibrolux, and 5E3 Deluxe. Of course, you know, most people know that those Tweed Fenders that you're talking about is where Marshall originated from. They basically copied those designs with slightly different British components. That gave it a slightly different tone. They used different speakers, they used different cabinets. So there was still enough distinction for people to say, okay, there's this new Marshall sound, and it really gave birth to a new style of music, but it all comes from Tweeds, which isn't always obvious. When you plug into a Fender Deluxe, a little Tweed Deluxe, compared to a Marshall stack or a JTM45 or something, of course it's a totally different sound, it's a totally different feel and response. But there's a lot of merit to using small Tweed amps, as I'm doing today, and later on I'm going to crank this amp and you'll hear the merits of it. It's a different thing, but Tweed amps and brown face Fender amps as well, they just have this real warm quality. And you quoted about the tones that Joe Walsh gets, for example, and he's got his new Dr. Z Master, which is available at Peach Guitars, I might point out. Amazing amplifier, and that is basically a Fender Bandmaster clone, or tweaked revision thereof. Incredible amp. And yeah, it's got a Marshall-y type thing if you crank it and if you use it in the right way with the right guitar. But yeah, a lot of merit to old Fender Tweed era amplifiers, so I'm glad you pointed that out. Marcus Rogers says, thoughts on unpotted pickups. I recently put unpotted pickups in a parts caster. My first experience with unpotted pickups, they're amazing. So far no issues with feedback, but only playing at home volume. I'm also a huge fan of unpotted pickups. My own Gibson Les Paul, I put some bare knuckle Stormy Monday pickups in that guitar and asked for them because you get the option with bare knuckle. They're an amazing company, they offer potted and unpotted pickups, and I went for unpotted. There's something, you know, there's something to it. I've been listening to a lot of Peter Green this week, as I'm sure a lot of guitar players have, as unfortunately we lost him earlier in the week. And I'm actually going to talk about that in a separate video coming up. But his tone, I think you can really only get that microphonic nature from an unpotted PAF type pickup. So I think there's a lot of merit to it. Particularly if you don't play with a lot of gain. You know, if you're the kind of player that you want to play loud, but you don't necessarily want to play with that much gain, then you do find that unpotted pickups, I just think they have a little bit more life to them. It's kind of like a very, very small smidge. It's like a little bit of presence, maybe that you unlock by not putting wax on the pickup. But it's very small, and if you're playing with high gain, it doesn't matter. You want the benefit of having the pickups not squealing, but unpotted pickups, you know, not a lot of manufacturers do it from stock, but a lot of aftermarket pickup guys do. And I really like it to suit certain guitars. So yeah, good point on the unpotted pickups, Marcus. These guitars, someone asked, are they DiMarzio custom P90s? I'm not actually sure what brand of pickups Ernie Ball choose to use for their P90s. You do see a few guitars with DiMarzio, so I'd say that's a pretty safe bet. The full spec will undoubtedly be on this guitar's web listing on our website, so you can check that out for confirmation of that. Okay, I think covered a lot of questions here. Thoth asks, going all out with the long hair? I certainly am, and I've had to tie it up today to keep it out of my face, but thank you, I appreciate the compliment. I only responded to that because someone also asked for a revision to that question below. Okay, there's a few more questions there, but I'm going to just play some more before I get to them. I've got a couple of other guitars I want to show you today, and one of them, this is something that I've had a bit of a love affair with recently. I wonder if you can guess what this is before I turn it around. No, I can't be bothered with the suspense. It's an Eggle, and it looks like this. So that's one thing, but I'm also going to show you how it sounds. These Eggle Macon guitars. So Patrick James Eggle is a UK builder, and we featured a lot of his stuff. And the more I've played these guitars, and particularly the recent batch of his guitars that we've had a lot of these Macon single cut guitars. We've also had a couple of other, we had one of his T-style guitars. bits and pieces, they just get better and better, and aesthetically as well. I mean, this is going to be the kind of thing you either really like or you don't, but it's hard to convey this through a camera as well. I have no idea how that's coming through. I love it. I love this. Love the way this looks, and I love the way it sounds. So I'm going to show you that right now. And I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to, as I said before, crank the organ and show you the benefit of just playing, particularly a humbucker guitar, I think, into a cranked small amp with a ton of reverb. So, let's go. I'm going to turn the reverb back up, I'm going to turn the amp up. Here we go. Okay, so a couple more words on this Eggle. If you're looking for a single cut guitar, you know, make no mistake, I'm in the room that best exemplifies probably the best guitar maker in the world for single cut style instruments. You know, there's tons of Gibsons around me, but they're not for everybody. And as I discussed last week when I showed you the Les Paul Junior, the Gibson Les Paul Junior that is, I mentioned the fact that, you know, you've got guitar brands like Nags that make a junior style guitar. You've got other brands that make certainly influential style guitars that have obviously taken influence from Gibson instruments. And if you're one of those players that's just never really vibed with a Gibson guitar for whatever that might be, for whatever reason that might be, but you love the sound and you love the feel, Eggle has really reared their head in terms of being one of the best options if you're looking for an alternative. And it's not a Gibson copy. That's what I love so much about it. You've got these really nice sort of little artistic licenses that Patrick James Eggle has taken, such as the body contouring on the back, which hopefully you can see on the neck heel here as well as the upper bout. A couple of these guitars have also had slightly different wood combinations. So I remember one of them had, I think it had a, it's not this guitar anyway, but they mix up the wood combinations for the neck. I think maybe it had a maple neck and an ebony board, or something like that, that just gave it more of a zingy kind of top end. This guitar looks like it's got a mahogany neck, so this is a little bit more true to Gibson form. And they use Mojo pickups as well, which are hand-wound UK-made pickups, and I just find it really hard to fault them. Let me show you a little bit more, and I'll also mention, you know, I turned the amp up. The amp's around halfway up on the volume. Guys, next time you come into a guitar shop, please just, you know, as long as it doesn't upset anybody that you might be buying a guitar from, be responsible with it. But you learn so much about an instrument by turning the amp up and just playing dynamically. So, you know, all the way from when I was at about 3 on the volume to turning it up to 10, you hear there's just so much bandwidth there, and I learn a lot about these pickups, and I learn a lot about the tone of the guitar rather than just playing it flat out into a really quiet amp. And here's the party piece of the reverb built into an amp that I was talking about earlier. That splash you don't get from anything else. So yeah, really good combination here. There's tons of these guitars in at the moment. There's loads of these Nick Huber. So I'll tell you why I did that, because Steve Burrows has just mentioned, play the Huber Orca guitar, Jack. This is a Patrick James Eggle, I might just clarify, but Huber guitars make excellent guitars as well. But what I was making the point of was, sorry for the confusion there, Patrick James Eggle, these Macon guitars are among some of my favourite guitars in the shop, so I wanted to just give them a little bit of credit, and as I said, you will actually be seeing some more videos detailing what makes these guitars so great in the future on the channel, so make sure that you're subscribed, if you haven't done so already, to check that stuff out. Okay, so I waffled a little bit about that one. This is the last guitar I'm going to show you today. And actually, somebody asked a little earlier on in the questions, which I'm going to make sure once again I haven't missed anything. Rob Brady says, "Hi Jack, are Eastman guitars as good as Gibson custom shop guitars, or are they more on par with Gibson USA production models?" So, Eastman, like any other company, tier their guitars, so you've got sort of more premium models and you've got slightly more affordable models, which, as you say, are kind of more in keeping with Gibson's production line. This one that I'm showing you today is the T386, and this is priced pretty much at about £1,000. So it is more in keeping with Gibson USA production lineup. However, if you want to quantify it that way, this guitar is literally about half the cost, or getting on for half the cost of a Gibson production guitar. So to answer your question, I wouldn't say that this competes with a custom shop guitar, but they do make guitars that do. So for example, you go on from here to like the T59V guitar, for example, which has, you know, hand-wound Seymour Duncan antiquity pickups in it, I believe, and just a slightly higher level of craftsmanship and tone woods and stuff like that. But I wanted to play this guitar because I remember doing the listings for these for the very first time probably a year or two ago, and was just really blown away. So for £1,000, or near enough, you know, if you're looking for a 335 style instrument, Eastman, I think, if you're going to spend this kind of money, this is the best option that you got. You can of course go with Epiphone or lower end Gibson guitars, but for my money, the value you get out of one of these, being a handmade guitar, handmade in Beijing, China, even acoustically, right? Let me just point that out. Obviously this isn't going to convey through a phone, but I've played a ton of Gibsons that do not compete with this guitar just for sheer projection, and then when you factor in the tonal property that this has got as well of being really warm. Right, now here it is through an amp. Okay, so super warm 335 type tone. If I go to the bridge pickup, it's got the clarity as well as the heft, and sometimes you find that with a semi-hollow guitar or a 335 style guitar, It can lose. It's often those things are at the kind of detriment of one another. You either have super clarity, which is rare, or you have just a lot of heft, so that when you're playing this this guitar at higher volumes or with higher gain levels, it sounds full-bodied, which is great. But to me, and I'm sure a lot of people watching, if you want this kind of instrument, you're probably going for that dynamic blues thing. And let me just show you the in-between sound on a 335, which always is the telltale sign for me. We'll use a little bit of the nice delay too from the Micro Dream just for a slapback. I seem to be gravitating to the key of D for some reason in this video, but I'm going to move away. Let's go A flat, why not? And if I put the dualist onto that, that's what a 335 style guitar should do, in my opinion, and this does it better than anything else I've tried for £1,000. So just want to put that out there. Just for recap, this was the T386 from Eastman. A couple of cool colours as well. I believe you can get this in black if you don't like the cherry red, but if you don't like the cherry red, I kind of have to question your opinion, to be honest with you, because I think it's the best colour for a 335. And I'd be curious to see if anyone agrees with that in the comments. And if not, why not? So, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything, as always. A lot of talk about different guitars. Okay, let me just jump back here, because I have missed quite a lot of stuff, it seems. Right. So hopefully, anyway, Rob, Brady, that answers your question about Eastman guitars. I think they're absolutely brilliant. And, you know, in terms of putting them on a par with Gibson Custom Shop, you can't really do that. Certain of their models you can, but this particular one I'm playing today, this compares very, very, very well to a Gibson Production USA guitar. So that's all I'll say. Thoth once again asks, in your opinion, PRS Custom 24 or Sir Modern for more technical styles? That's very much a subjective thing. I personally prefer Sir Moderns if you want to play faster and more technically, because they usually have less of a glossy neck, and it's just a little bit more speedy. The neck profile feels a little bit more accustomed to playing faster on it. But PRS guitars, of course, are amazing as well, but it just, in my experience, in my opinion, I think the Sir Modern, if you're specifically looking at technical playing, I would give the nod to Sir on that one. Did you Sport? Did you ever play a Fender Princeton Black Blue Edition with the Celestion Blue 12? I have done. So that's the amp that you're talking about, was a limited edition Fender 65 Princeton, but with a 12-inch Celestion Blue speaker in an all blue finish, which I think was one of the best looking amps that they ever did. That's an amazing amp. I mean, the Celestion Blue is probably, for a small amp, like if this JS 12 that I'm plugged into today had a Celestion Blue, I think it would be damn near a perfect amp. The JS12 speaker from Eminence that it's got in it is a great sounding speaker, and it's more efficient. That was the whole point of why Josh Smith wanted to put that speaker in this amp. But a Celestion Blue 15-watt speaker, still super loud, but you know, it crunches up a little bit in a sweet way. That would sound amazing in any small Princeton amp. So to that end, if you can find one of those amps with a Celestion Blue, or indeed any small amp, I know Dr. Z makes a lot of amps with Celestion Blues or Golds if you need higher power. They're amazing speakers, and it really can make or break an amp. So yes, I have played that and I really like it. Okay, once again, Chris Post, I'm choosing a Sir PT15 IR and matching cab. Are you a fan of this amp? Yes, very, very good choice, Chris. You're going to be very happy with that. We've done a demo of the PT15 in case you haven't seen it. You can find that on the channel. It's one of the most versatile amps around, and we used to use the Mesa Boogie Triple Crown in a lot of our videos, and that PT15 comes it's in a very similar ballpark to that amplifier. I wouldn't say it comes close to it because it's 15 versus 50 watts. But if you're looking for versatility, then the PT15 is going to be one of the best options, and it's got the IRs built in. So you're going to be very happy with that. Congratulations on your imminent purchase. Okay. It seems, yes, so my colleagues somewhere in this building are linking all the products that I'm talking about in the live chat. So if you're interested in checking out any of the guitars I've talked about, I don't know if there's anything for the pedals I talked about, but just for recap, I'm playing the new Dualist V2, and I've got the Micro Dream delay from Death by Audio, if you missed it. What amp would you recommend for cranking at home and small venues with a Strat? Well, it depends on how big your home is, and if you want to use any kind of attenuation or anything like that. If you can get away with it, a Princeton reverb, or a variant thereof, like the JS12 from Morgan that I'm playing today. You know, it's loud, but it's manageable, and I'm sure this isn't going to be a crude test, you know, it doesn't really prove much, but if I play this amp, I wonder if you can hear me talk over it. Talking. Don't know what that proves, but you know, it's not crazy loud. So a 12-watt amp, cranked. It just depends on how you're going to play as well. Like I say, if you're going to play full on like that all the time, then you're going to struggle, and you're going to want something like a 1-watt amp or an attenuator. But if you want to crank the amp and then just tickle it, if you will. Which I will just say to the end of, like, you know, people that ask questions about playing styles and playing tips and techniques, that's one of the best that I could offer, is to say that play as softly as you can with an amp as loud as you can, because you do find, like, if I have the volumes really low on this guitar, your playing is like it's under the microscope, but in a really nice way, because you've got that lovely bed of reverb there, for example. It's really satisfying to play, even at very low volume. Now I really am talking over that. So very quiet at the moment. You've always got that in reserve, but It's a really nice challenge just to play dynamically like that. Sorry, that was me turning the delay off that I just put on. So yeah, okay. Hopefully that vaguely answers that question. I mean, that's quite a big question, I suppose, about playing an amp, cranking at home. You can either go down the bigger amp with attenuators route, or you can go for the small amp and crank it up. It just depends what you like. Right. How's the neck, somebody asks, on this Eastman versus a Gibson? Is it a bit beefier? No, it's actually quite a fairly slim neck on this. It's fairly like a typical 60s neck, but I will say that because Eastman hand carve all their necks, they hand finish all their necks, you get that really nice sense that it's an old guitar, because if ever you've played an old guitar, you probably notice that the neck feels just really well shaped to an unmachine-like. It really feels well shaped to your hand. So this got a slight V on it, actually. And what that suggests to me is that a guitar at this price point, which again is like £1,000, it feels way more premium than that. And I do actually think that now you pick up on it, the neck shape has quite a lot to do with that. I'm just thinking about it now, just my initial impression of your question. The way this has got a slight V to it, I think, adds more of a premium feel. So that again is a point in Gibson's favour. So yeah, very good point on the neck. Okay, let me see what else we got. I want to try and get through as many of these questions as I can before the time is up, so keep them coming in, guys, if you haven't submitted one already. Okay. Sunburst or a blonde on a 335 for me, says Metal Thrashing Matt. Yeah, there's very good choices as well, particularly on, I think, on earlier 335s, like the late 50s guitars and the early 60s, which I guess this is kind of referencing because of the dot inlays and stuff. But when it comes to a block inlay 335, when it comes to a 1964 cherry red 335, as used by Eric Clapton, as used by John Mayer, as used by Joe Bonamassa, that to me is that's the epitome. So cherry red, get it where you can, I feel, with 335. But yeah, Sunburst and Blonde are great too. Sean Jones asks, thoughts on the differences between the stereo and mono versions of the Magnatone Twilighter amp? Do you find the stereo to be that much more 3D feeling? Is the stereo too much amp for most? Okay, that's a very good question. The stereo Magnatone, I haven't played it for quite a while, but I remember when we did the demo for it, it does sound a lot bigger because it's literally twice the amp. There's two separate outputs there that are operating independently to power the tremolo in that amp. So in terms of your question of it being much more 3D feeling, I think definitely yes. And I remember hearing John play that amp shortly after we got them in. I remember he was playing it, I think it was with a telly up here upstairs in the shop, and I was coming up the stairs, and it's almost like a Leslie. It's not quite as drastic as a Leslie cabinet would be. If anyone's ever been in the same room as a Leslie cabinet, you feel it physically whirring away. It's got that same kind of effect though. So if you want that, if you want to handle that, and it's a great thing to experience, then yeah, go for the stereo. But the mono has the same quality of the effect. So if it's just the effect that you're after, the actual tonal tremolo effect, the mono amp sounds amazing, and it is a little bit more manageable. But the stereo is quite special. So it depends on what context you're going to use it in. If you're in a band that has the sort of a sparse enough mix to make the most of that stereo nature, then I'd go for it. But if you are looking to kind of confine your tone a little bit more, maybe if you're playing at home, or if you're playing in a more dense band mix, the mono will not disappoint you. Those are great amps actually. I might try and feature one of those in a future live video, the Magnatone amps. Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Sean. In fact, I see that Steve Burrows chimed in again on the subject of that, said he's got the panoramic which is the stereo version, I believe, and it's fab. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. What's the best sounding telly you sell for up to £1,000? Okay. Well, I've got to give it to Fender, and I've got to say, I really was impressed with the American Performer guitars that we've recently done a video on once again. Well under £1,000, I believe. You can get great results out of the Fender Player series, you can get great results out of the Vintera series, but the American Performer, I believe it is, series of guitars are just, they're kind of quintessentially Fender to me, because they're not specifically trying to recreate old guitars, and they're not like reissues. They have their own personality going on, and the personality I think is really nice. So American Performers for under £1,000 on a Telecaster, check those out. They got some great colours as well. And as I said, you might be seeing a video from us in the future detailing those guitars anyway. So check those out. Right, let me try and zip through another couple of quick questions before I wrap this video up. Thanks again everyone for sending these in. I really appreciate it. It's great to see that you're enjoying what we're doing. Darren C. Jack, do you know the barbers are open? I do. Thank you, Darren. Ben Butterworth, greetings from Oxford. Any thoughts on a versatile electric for gigging? Humbucker and single coil tones ideally. Money not a consideration right now. Very lucky. My go-to, if you want a Strat style guitar, which an HSS S style guitar is pretty much all you need for most gigs, and I'm presuming you're referring to like maybe a function band setup or a cover band type of situation. My personal choice is the Sir Classic Pro, because it's got the noiseless pickup system, it's got an amazing feeling neck, it's got a great bridge system which just doesn't have tuning issues whatsoever. So that will serve you very well, Sir Classic Pro, and the Peach versions of those guitars, the Peach Dealer Select Classic S HSS guitars. I appreciate that's not a lot of names I've thrown at you there, but Sir Classic S I would go with. However, exotic, if you want something a little bit more vintage and maybe closer to home if you're traditionally a Fender player, Exotic's XSC2 guitars as well are equally amazing but just different, so it just depends what you like. But my vote would be for the Sir Classic, to answer your question. Darren also asked, is Peach appointment only still? It is at the moment, so call up or email or whatever it might be, and the guys will facilitate getting you in. I'm sat in one of the appointment rooms right now, which is a really nice place to be. I believe a chap before I came in here and made a huge amount of horrendous noise this afternoon was trying out a bunch of really nice custom shop tellies and stuff like that. So if you want, if you want to have a great experience, then just please do make an appointment and come and see us, because there's no substitute for trying gear. But as I've said before, we really appreciate all the custom we've had online, and hopefully we try and facilitate that in as best a way as we can. So, but yeah, make an appointment if you want to come down. A couple of names actually were thrown in, yeah, Freddie King and Buck Cherry, which I presume maybe Karma Police, that's a reference to the guitar I was talking about, the Cherry 335, because I know the guys from that band do play Gibson style guitars a lot, and I'm sure they've got some 335. But yeah, Freddie King, another big Cherry ES guitar, indoor C. Adam Tick says, can you recommend a good reverb pedal that comes close to a Fender Princeton reverb type sound? My go-to, as I'm sure a lot of people's, is the Strymon Flint, which doesn't sound quite the same. It still sounds, it doesn't sound like a reverb tank. And you can, of course, there's so many wacky pedals on the market now that actually maybe have real springs in them and stuff like that. I don't think you need to go that far, personally. I think the Flint is perfect for a reverb pedal if you want that spring type nature. However, if you just want a only for the spring, because the Flint is great because it's got tremolo as well and a couple of other reverb types, but if you only want spring reverb like a Fender amp, I'd probably say that the Wampler faux spring reverb, the little green pedal, that sounds brilliant, and that's got a little bit more control than a Fender amp because it's got tone control. which is fairly unusual for reverbs that are just going for a spring sound. So that would be my choice. The Strymon Flint, though, if you just want one reverb to end it all, you know, I bought a Flint probably, oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and I've never ever had it off my board. I've tried other reverb pedals, and I love other reverb pedals, but Strymon Flint sounds great, and it comes really close to a Fender amp, but there's no substitute for that. There just isn't. Pedals are great, but it's all that trail afterwards. It's the way it interacts with the cabinet. It's alive. So anyway, yeah, hopefully that's a decent recommendation for a reverb. Okay, so last question before I wrap up today, from Casey Chauvenac. My main overdrive is a King of Tone, but I'm very intrigued by the Dualist. Are these too similar to warrant having both, or are they completely different animals? Okay, the King of Tone is much revered, and it is a fantastic sounding overdrive pedal. In my opinion, it sounds a little bit more natural. So what we were talking about last week with the Nobles, for example, where you can just plug that in and it sounds like you've turned the amp up, and that's that natural element, it's that transparent quality that a lot of people look for. The King of Tone does that superbly well. It does have a slight bit of a mid-range push, more so than the Nobles did. But I put it in that same kind of camp, in that it's, you know, you've got one, so you understand the virtues of it, why it's so great. It's like, it's great as an always on. I personally wouldn't use it as my go-to overdrive pedal. You know, it's great for maybe building a bass tone, and then you probably find that maybe you like to kick the King of Tone with another drive pedal. That's where the Dualist comes in. So in my opinion, even though their format is quite similar, they're like a 2-in-1 drive pedal, they are different in the sense that the Dualist is, in my opinion, it's the perfect pedal to use as an overdrive. And what I mean by that, I'm not just pronouncing the word weirdly. I mean that if you want to, like I said, kick something hard, if you want to kick your bass tone up a notch, like a channel 2, the Dualist is the best pedal that I've ever played for that. The King of Tone is impeccable at melding with your amp and becoming part of the cushioning of the tone. So they differ in that respect. Tonally as well, they're totally different. The Dualist is a lot higher gain. It's more obviously mid-range focused. And I think it's also a little bit more versatile because you've got 2 totally different sounding circuits with voicing switches on each. I know the King of Tone has the dip switches for the different boost overdrive modes and stuff like that, but if you're looking for an overdrive pedal, and as I say, I'm using that in the definitive sense of the word, to literally overdrive other components in your chain, Dualist all day. But if you've got a King of Tone, don't get rid of that, because they play very nicely together. Right, I'm going to sign off here. Metal Thrashing Matt had a last minute addition to the reverb question, the Cattle Inbred Topanga. Very good. It's not my favourite. I think it's a little bit, I don't know, it's not quite as natural sounding as those other ones I mentioned. It is an amazing pedal, but it has a little bit of that synthetic edge, in my experience. Maybe I've plugged it into the wrong amp before or whatever, but yeah, it's another great option if you want a definitive spring reverb sound. Anyway, I'm not going to be able to seamlessly cut this video off while I'm playing, so I'm going to play a little bit more just to show you what this guitar sounds like with the JS12 and the Dualist and the delay, and then I'm going to clumsily stumble over and end the video. So, thank you very much everyone for watching today. I'll be back next week, I imagine, probably on Wednesday at 4 PM. So I hope to see a lot of you there. Thanks so much for watching though, and thanks for your questions. Keep them coming in, whether it's on YouTube video comments or the Instagram stories that we do. Let me just, I know I'm jumping around a lot. I do just want to address, because I took the time to ask people on Instagram what they wanted to ask, and so it's only fair that I do answer at least one of those. Somebody says, "Hi, how are you?" That's very nice. So I'm fine, thank you. Frankie Boy Music had a good question. What was the best Strat you ever played, and did you buy it? The best Strat I ever played, unfortunately, I could not buy because it was a Dale Wilson Masterbuilt guitar, which I just could not afford. Whoever bought that is very lucky. It doesn't really matter which one, they're all just magic. But the one that I did not let get away was a 62 custom shop that was in here. It was a Sienna Sunburst 62, which in itself is quite unique, and it had at the time someone had retrofitted a Clapton mid-boost circuit on it. And it was a great guitar, and I demoed it and I thought, oh, this is so good, it's got such a nice feeling neck. It had a really comfortable neck. And I asked John very politely if I could perhaps keep that guitar to one side for a couple of days, and I did, and I bought it, and I love that guitar. So yeah, I thought it was a good question, Matt, on Instagram. Hopefully that answers that. Yeah, so I did manage to not let that guitar slip away, but Dale Wilson's are another story. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week.